Well, it is time to welcome everyone to the 27th meeting of the 46th year of the Rotary Club of Dublin and Worthington. I did not check. I have Al Wu listed as the person giving the invocation, and he is not on today. So, does anybody have a backup? Okay. Is Jerry? Jerry, you're on mute, I think. Yeah. Do you have a backup, Jerry?
Yeah, just give me a minute.
Okay.
Why don't you all just put yourself in a prayerful mood?
That's tough for this group, and it may take us 20 minutes.
I'm praying for you, Jerry.
Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate it.
All right, if you'll bow your heads, please, to a supreme being we pray. It is so simple to help others, to make their life better. Help us to not make it difficult, but to do it because we can. To this, we all say, amen.
Thank you, Jerry. And let's have the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Jerry, for stepping in. I appreciate it greatly, along with the rest of the club. So, President-elect Steve?
Yes.
Are there any visiting Rotarians?
Let's take a quick glance here. I do not see anybody.
Okay.
All regular Rotarians here, or I should say exceptional Rotarians. No visiting. So we'll go to Happy Dollars. Who's got one?
Well,
Okay. I'll start, Steve.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
We are very excited that we're going to be grandparents for the second time, and grandbaby number 2 will be born this summer and live 10 minutes away. So we're super excited.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yep.
I have one. Sue and I are leaving on Friday for Florida for 2 weeks. So we'll be coming to Rotary from Florida.
Fantastic. What part?
Sanibel and
we're traveling a little bit.
Fort Myers Beach and Bradenton.
That'll be awesome.
Yeah.
Bring me back some sand.
Okay.
I'll
piggyback off of that. We're going to Fort Myers mid-April. We're just excited to get away, and my parents agreed to watch our boys for a few days, and that may be the last time they agree to do that, but I'll take it.
Hey, George, where do you fly into? George?
What?
Where do you fly into?
We fly into Regional Southwest, which is Naples. We fly out of Tampa.
Fort Myers.
Fort Myers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll pass you on the road.
Oh. Where are you?
We're in Treasure Island.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Our dog gets to go on this trip too. We'll be flying with him.
Right.
Well, I have a few. The
All right,
my
Kurt.
grandson finished 10th in the state in the 200 meter swimming relay, which makes
Oh, that was
an
this.
Ohio swimmer. And he'll be going on to Ohio Wesleyan as a swimmer. So we're quite proud of him. He is from, they swam, oh, and it's Dublin Jerome, it was the team, and they ended up 10th in the state also. So it's quite good.
Awesome.
I have one. I have a happy dollar. We're heading to Nashville for spring break for 5 days. So very happy to get to some warm weather and out of Columbus for a little bit.
When's that happening, Katie?
Spring break for my son is, let's see, we're leaving March 27th through April 1st. So
Nice.
Steve, I have a happy dollar.
Yeah, Mike, go for it.
Saturday is the opening of the live and in-person Home and Garden Show. And we finished setting up our display today, which is a bit early for what we've had in the past. And I'm happy to be done with that. So hopefully we'll get some nice weather and people will come out and enjoy the show.
Mike's, when's the show?
It opens Saturday and it runs through the following Sunday.
Okay, cool. Have to remember that.
Is it at the fairgrounds again, Mike?
It's at the fairgrounds and tickets are being sold online in 3-hour blocks. So you have approximately 3 hours to get through the show. They're trying to limit the number of people in the building. So if you want to purchase a ticket online, you can pick a time slot and then we can at least a little bit control the traffic in and through the building.
Yeah, that's great.
So Mike, I think that was the last big in-person event held in Columbus.
It was.
For the pandemic, and now it's the first, probably the first one.
It is the
Yeah.
first to come back. The state of Ohio made us move it to March from our normal February date, just to follow some of the safety protocols. Their numbers are coming down now, so they feel comfortable with allowing people to socialize in public again. How about that? And last year was the last show. We got shut down right after the show ended. So full year. Now we're back at it.
Crazy.
Good sign.
Well, that was great. Thank you, everybody. Jim, I'll turn it back to you for announcements.
Announcements, I think Katie has one.
Steve, put up that image, please.
Ranging from fractures to
Can you see it?
Speaking of coming back, Rotary After Hours are coming back March 24th before I leave on my 5-day stint in Nashville. We're gonna go to Pins Mechanical and off of Riverside. Whoops. Hello. Okay.
All right.
And you can either you can that's all right. You can RSVP either to me or Christy Bruffy, or you can when I send out the meeting notice, sorry, my dogs. Girls. When I send out the meeting notice later today, you can click on this link or type in this link and it will go to a form for you to fill out. So all different ways to contact us to let us know that you are going to be coming. We're asking for a head count so we know how much food to buy and bring. All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Other announcements? Okay. Then at this point, Mark, can you introduce our speaker for the day?
Sure. So Rachel is with the City of Dublin, the economic development team there. So she's involved with all the city's efforts to retain and attract new and exciting businesses to the city. Rachel and I actually went through Leadership Dublin together back in 2012 or 2013, somewhere back in there. It's hard to believe it was that long ago now. But I guess that's kind of it. You're not on here to hear me talk about her. You're here to hear what she has to say. So Rachel, on to you.
Very good. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate the introduction, and nice to be here with all of you this morning. Wish it could be in person, as I'm sure all of you do as well, but we'll make the best of the situation here. I will share my screen and got a couple of slides that we'll run through. I will do my best to kind of monitor the chat as well. If there are any questions, feel free to stop me along the way. We'll try to also leave some time for questions afterwards. But really what I wanted to talk about today was just a brief development update, what's going on in Dublin, as well as our economic outlook for the year ahead. And just for those who are interested and who may be local to Dublin, just how the city has fared over the past year, as we've been talking about, since the pandemic went into effect. So that's what's on the agenda today. And of course, if there's anything else you'd like to talk about, please let me know. All right, let's see here. Yep, that's the agenda. All right, and I would of course be remiss without giving due credit to the rest of my team. I am one of several at the City of Dublin. So again, those of you who are familiar with or local to Dublin, you may have crossed paths with one of my team members. Colleen Gilger is the Director of Economic Development, as well as Eric Meyer and Sarah O'Malley, they're other administrators. And then we have two admins who have been very handy to us over the past year as well. So again, just wanted to make sure that you are familiar with these faces in case you ever have a need to reach out to one of us. And of course, for those of you who are more local to the Worthington area, David McCorkle is actually your economic development director for that area. So I wanted to make sure that called you folks out as well. So for those of you who enjoy numbers and stats and facts, just a couple of numbers to put the City of Dublin in context. As of this year, we were right around 50,000 residents, and probably comes as no surprise to many of you that Dublin is the largest suburb in the Columbus region at about 25 square miles. City of Dublin is, so I've got a question here. First one, am I on the Food Network? No, I'm not. Unfortunately, you don't want to see my cooking skills or lack thereof. Dublin has always been really well known for being a great place to live and work, and our community survey shows that. Some information about kind of our overall economic activity, and just one other stat that is important to us here in economic development, which is the how much commercial square footage of real estate that we have in our community. We've got about 9.1 million square feet of Class A, B, and C office space, which is by far the most in any Columbus region submarket. So again, to put that in context, the downtown, the central business district has about 19 to 20 million. So we've got about half as much as downtown Columbus does, just spread out over a wider area. The next closest is the Westerville Polaris area, and then New Albany in terms of just where our competition is. And as we'll talk about, as far as what companies are looking to do, what decisions they're looking to make from a real estate standpoint, we are looking very closely at what those impacts are going to be for our office real estate here in Dublin. So to that end, just as far as performance over the past year, how we've been, our most recent unemployment rates, Dublin is doing fairly well compared to the national average, but just to kind of look back a year ago, we were under 3% unemployment. So we're just over 5% here at this point. So again, that kind of shows how that's an average over the entire year. We're kind of a little bit closer to where we were at the end of last year, which is good news. But that's kind of where we stand from an unemployment standpoint. I mentioned all of our commercial real estate in Dublin. We finished the year out at about 13.5% vacancy in Dublin. And really from a target standpoint, as an economic development team, we really look at wanting to be in that 8 to 12% vacancy range. And the reason for that is we want to make sure that, if we're at full occupancy, then that means there's really no opportunity to help our existing companies grow into new spaces or attract new business investment in the city. So we want to make sure that we're always either having new properties in the pipeline, or that we have just enough space to continue to attract new investment. So we're probably a little on the higher end, but again, compared with how the rest of the region is doing, I think we're in pretty good shape. But again, if you are to drive around town, as I'm sure many of you have, a lot of our office building parking lots are empty at this point. Again, those of you who are familiar with Dublin have probably, it won't come as any surprise to you again that we have a lot of white collar workers, many of whom are able to work from home, and that's what they've been doing for the time being. So at this point, from a leasing standpoint, our impact hasn't changed too much as a result of the pandemic, although we're still monitoring that. We just haven't seen a whole lot of companies bring their teams back in full force to the office, which isn't unexpected. From an income tax revenue standpoint, which, as you know, is how the city of Dublin gets the majority of its funding, we receive the 2% income taxes from those who work in the city of Dublin. Our income tax revenue overall was only about 1.2% under 2019 levels, which is pretty impressive. I know our finance director breathed a huge sigh of relief at the end of the year when those final numbers came in. And in fact, our overall withholdings, individuals increased by 8%, and our overall withholdings were, when they factor in other, what other aspects factor into that, we were up by 3% over the year. So again, that just speaks to the fact that in Dublin, many of our companies were able to avoid large-scale layoffs, at least for the time being. They just sent everybody home. So that's where we were at the end of 2020. And as far as how that translates to what we're looking at for the year ahead, we all, as we all do, we wish we had a crystal ball. We wish we had a better understanding of what this is going to translate to in terms of long-term impact. So the best that we can do is just talk to our partners and companies in the community to try to do the best that we can with maintaining a consistent and as up-to-date as possible outlook on what lies ahead. So what that means is we're talking with our real estate brokerage community partners, those who have buildings listed in Dublin. They're a really good source of intelligence to understand how companies are thinking about leasing activity and real estate decision timelines. We've heard that a lot of companies are kind of kicking the can down the road, trying to wait to make decisions if they can, executing short-term leases, maybe 1 to 3 year extensions, just to see, how, the dust is going to settle when all is said and done. And nobody's really in the position of signing long-term 10-year leases, which honestly is what we really like to see from an economic development standpoint, which really communicates a strong long-term investment in the community. So that's one impact that's starting to emerge. We're also talking with companies about their virtualization strategies. Many companies have realized that, the Zoom meetings, nobody really, loves them 100% of the time, but they work. And from a bottom line standpoint, if it just doesn't make sense to maintain a large office presence, all the costs that come associated with it, some companies are looking at doing that long term. Now, fortunately, we have heard from large companies like Cardinal Health, who has gone on record. Quantum Health is another one who has a large presence here in Dublin now, that they will be returning to the office as soon as it's safe to do so. So from our standpoint, we're breathing a sigh of relief. We want to make sure that we are filling our office buildings and keeping that occupancy high to the extent possible. And really that is a result of just the overall tax policy. So right now there's a state of emergency in effect where instead of filing where you are currently seated, where you're working, if you may work in Dublin, that may be where your place of business is. But if you live in Upper Arlington, like I do, you would normally be paying your taxes to the city of Upper Arlington. And if you have a presence there for more than, I think it's like 3 weeks out of the year total. So right now that has been paused, although there has been some desire to, revoke that or kind of go back to a situation where, you pay where you work. And if you work from home, then you're paying your income taxes to that community. So that has obviously major and I'll say catastrophic implications for communities and cities like the big six in Ohio, plus cities like Dublin, who really aren't the traditional bedroom community. We actually are a net importer of jobs compared with other suburbs in the Columbus region. So that's something that we're monitoring very closely at the State House. And then last item here that I'll mention just in terms of outlook. We are looking at studying the long-term kind of second order impacts of the pandemic. Obviously, the food and beverage industry, the hospitality industry, those were by far the hardest hit over the past year. Many of the companies in Dublin being the white collar jobs, business services, and otherwise, they haven't been as hard hit. But if their customers are impacted, then that might have a longer term impact on the companies who do call Dublin home. So something that we're monitoring, but fortunately haven't seen any large scale concerning results at this point. I see there's a chat here. John has a question. If people work from home, does the income go to their home city? So absolutely. So in a normal situation, if you work from home, wherever your home community is, that's where you're paying your income taxes or where you're filing them. So again, that can have a major impact on how the landscape looks when all of this shakes out. Are there any other specific questions on this item before I move on to other things here? Feel free to put them in the chat if so. Go ahead and move on, and we can certainly come back. So just taking a step back, I've talked a lot of inside baseball when it comes to economic development. Thought it might be helpful for those who are interested in giving a little bit of a peek behind the curtain in terms of what we do as far as economic development for the city of Dublin. And really these 5 pillars here that we'll talk about, this is pretty standard across the industry for many local economic development organizations. So again, those of you who are local to Worthington, they do a lot of these same types of work in that area as well. So again, David McCorkle is your person there. So the 5 pillars are business retention and expansion. So we want to take care of the companies that currently call Dublin home and make sure that they're happy and growing and doing everything that we can to help them thrive and maintain their investment. Of course, we always do like to celebrate attraction wins and work with our partners to secure new investment in our community. Workforce development, it's increasingly the #1 location decision driver for companies. And of course, we're always trying to look over the horizon in terms of innovation as well as job creation through entrepreneurship. And then lastly is infrastructure. Companies need to have the roads and utilities and other fiber optic infrastructure in place in order to do business. And we need, as a city, to be taking care of those systems. So we'll talk a little bit about what the city of Dublin is doing with respect to each of those pillars here. So the first one that I'll talk about is business retention and expansion. And this is just a little map that our team put together that shows how we've divided the city of Dublin up into different business districts. And just because Dublin has over 4,000 businesses, that's really too much for any one person to get a handle on and really get to know the unique challenges, opportunities specific to different parts of the community. So what we're doing every day, and even more so through the pandemic, is getting to know the companies, talking with them regularly as much as we can without being obnoxious, to get to know what's impacting their day-to-day ways of doing business. Are they able to keep creating new jobs, new investments? When are their leases coming due? What are their real estate decision-making factors and so forth. and how can we help them continue to grow and thrive in the city. And of course, we're also talking with building owners, commercial real estate brokers, really to just learn everything we can about our business districts. And then when the timing is right, bring new opportunities forward or address specific challenges in individual areas as well. And I thought this would be helpful for those of you who are on the call today as Rotary members, just, you as a small business person, or if you work at a larger enterprise in Dublin or Worthington, how can you connect with your local economic development person, or why should you? These are a couple of kind of things to bookmark in your minds as far as what services that we can offer to you directly. I talked a lot about facility and real estate assistance. So again, a lot of companies reach out to us when they're running out of space or their lease is coming due and they want to get a sense of what's available in the market. So we can help with that. We're not brokers, but we can kind of give you a sense of just generally speaking what the landscape is like. We also increasingly assist with workforce development. We connect companies with different partners, education providers, as well as, working with our partners at One Columbus to provide salary research. So if you're creating new jobs and need to make sure that the salaries that you're offering are on par with others in the same industry, they can kind of help provide some research for you to calibrate those offerings. We have also rolled out a new program, a last mile shuttle service with CODA and a local microtransit company called Share. As you might be familiar with, there's not a whole lot of CODA connectivity into the city of Dublin. So, but we do have a lot of companies that have employees that would very much like to use transit service. So we have this partnership with CODA and Share that it provides a last mile solution that actually picks up employees from their stop where CODA drops them off and takes them to the company's front door. And that is a free service that we are offering. And again, this is just a competitive advantage to help companies find the talent that they're looking for in our community. And there are certainly other creative programs that we're always looking to bring forward to our companies as well. And then lastly, of course, is business development. We certainly can talk about incentives, and I'll have a note about that a little bit later in the presentation. Business to business introductions, connecting them with different partners and resources, trying to make sure that when we become aware of funding opportunities in particular, especially through the pandemic, that we pass that along to our companies, since many of them just don't have the time or interest to scroll through, all the government websites and try to know what all is out there. It gets overwhelming very quickly. And, as we get to know our companies and build relationships with them, it's really helpful, they find, to have a person at the city that they can reach out to if there's any kind of random request that they get or they have, or if they see that there's a construction activity happening, they want to know what's going on there, or if we know that a particular company really relies heavily on the adjacent roadway network, we can let them know, hey, there's going to be a construction project happening. We'll make sure that you are very much in the loop so that you can plan accordingly for any disruptions to access to your facility when that happens. So just again, we're just that business resource and that first point of contact at the city. See another chat here. Question in the chat: how many business clients does each economic development staff member have? It really ranges. There really isn't a good, I guess, division of responsibilities in terms of number. We really divide it out geographically. For example, we have one area dedicated to our Metro Center Loop. There's about 1 million square feet of office. So again, that's almost 10% of Dublin's overall office area concentrated in that relatively small loop. And there are lots of companies ranging from the small 1 and 2 person shop all the way up to ViaQuest is probably one of our, Covetrus is one of our largest tenants with 400 or so employees in that area. So it really runs the gamut, and we really just do the best we can to reach out to as many of the companies as we possibly can in our business just areas. Okay. Keep connecting, keep going here. Again, wanted to make sure that from an attraction standpoint that we give credit due to our regional partners. We at the city really spend probably 80% of our time working with our existing companies and providing the resources that they need and working with them on expansion projects and retention projects. But we do work with One Columbus and Jobs Ohio on attracting new investments into the region and hopefully Dublin in particular as well. So wanted to make sure that that was shared in the area. Another question about how do we partner with the Dublin Chamber in Economic Development? That's a great question. We get that a lot. And actually, there's a lot of confusion at times between the City of Dublin Economic Development and the Dublin Chamber of Commerce. The obvious answer there is the Dublin Chamber is, it extends beyond the City of Dublin's boundaries. So they're the largest suburban chamber in the state of Ohio. And so they represent a slightly broader membership base, whereas our team represents only the businesses who are located in the city of Dublin or interested in relocating to Dublin. But we do partner quite a bit. The Dublin Chamber does a lot of great networking events. They do a lot of that direct business to business introductions. Those are some of the things that we just don't do a whole lot of event hosting in-house. We have a couple of exceptions to that. So we really rely on them to kind of provide some of that business to business networking opportunities, events, and other small business resources that we as a city just don't provide. So that's one example of how we partner with them directly. But we do a lot of referrals both ways for sure. Again, from the attraction standpoint, this is a lot of information on the screen here. This is just an overview of the companies that currently are in Dublin in our target industries. So when it comes to looking at who we are trying to attract to the city of Dublin and the Columbus region, or those that we really want to look at possibly incentivizing to relocate or expand here, we really try to focus on these target businesses, and that's really where our strengths lie. So that includes bioscience and healthcare. Obviously, we have quantum health, cardinal health, financial services and business support. So we have Pfizer, which is our largest at probably about 800 employees, as well as Sedgwick, which is a third-party administration company. And some others there. Haggerty's a new one. I'll talk a little bit more about that one in just a second. Of course, corporate headquarters and managing offices. So again, Wendy's, OCLC, IGS. And then IT and computer services, that's another big one. Dublin is really a tech hub in the Columbus region, well known for that and increasingly so. And then lastly, automotive research and development and logistics. And a lot of that, unsurprisingly, comes from the Honda supply chain by far. Next slide here. And again, I mentioned just by way of an example, an attraction win recently. This came right at the end of 2019, right before the pandemic hit. We worked with One Columbus to attract Haggerty, which is a specialty insurance provider for specialty automotive services. So if you have classic cars or I suppose any kind of automotive insurance that they could provide, but they do specialize in those classic or specialty cars. So anyways, they signed a lease for 41,000 square feet, which is 3 floors in one of the newest buildings over at Bridge Park. And they're planning to hire more than 300 new employees by over the next couple of years. So we're really excited to welcome them. That was a big win, not only for Dublin, but for the region itself. And they'll quickly become one of the largest anchor tenants over at Bridge Park. Looks like we've got another question here. Which of those major areas provide the most income tax revenue? That's also a great question. I'm not sure that we have broken that out by industry, and I'll also share another little insider tidbit as far as how we do business. Our economic development team is responsible for getting out and hitting the pavement to connect with businesses directly. Unfortunately, our tax department has a comprehensive list of every single entity that does business in Dublin and all the contact information, all the information about number of employees and how much income tax that they're bringing in, but it is not public information, and they don't even share it with us. So there is a firewall between economic development and tax, and they are very, very hesitant about the type of information they share with us, other than just kind of those very basic aggregate numbers about overall income tax receipts. So that might be data that income that our tax department has, but they have not made that available to us, unfortunately. Okay, keep going here. All right, I mentioned workforce, and I'll kind of lump that in with attraction here. Every year, Site Selector magazine, which is a national industry publication, polls company officials and site selectors as far as the top factors that companies are using to make location decisions, so on a national basis. And it's really interesting to kind of track what they look at from a year-to-year basis. And if you'll see at the very, very top of this list here, workforce skills has been reigning king at the very top of every location decision for the past several years running. And I highlighted here workforce skills, workforce development, higher education resources, and even quality of life. All of those factor into the people that companies need to do the work that they need. So whether that's tech talent, or all the way down to to welders, or technical types of skills that companies need based on their industry needs, or even a lot of companies are from a call center standpoint, they're looking at hourly wages and what's available in the region, and what the overall labor sheds and demographic data look like. So it really, runs the gamut as far as what companies need from a workforce standpoint. So every single company that we're talking to that has an interest in locating in Dublin, workforce is absolutely always one of the top factors that we're talking about. What's interesting, you might see on here, those of you who aren't as familiar with economic development, if you think about it, one of the words that probably comes to mind is incentives. Those certainly make headlines. There's always a lot of discussion and angst about that in many cases. But if you'll notice here on the list, they have always ranked at the very, very bottom of the list. They really aren't going to, to make a bad deal good. So to that end, when we've looked at all of the projects that we've done and the incentives that we've offered to companies over the past, however many decades in Dublin, most of the time, it's really just, the company is looking at workforce. They're looking at, is the facility, are there office spaces or, industrial space, the flex space that they need, is the real estate there, and is there proximity to, clients and customers, good school district, great neighborhoods, places like Bridge Park. Those are all the factors that they're looking at. Incentives may be just the factor that tips one community from one to the other from a decision-making standpoint. So that's really not something that really enters the equation until toward the very end of the discussion. So as far as what we do, since we do offer incentives at times, what we do is performance is typically performance-based incentives. So we work with companies to project out what their income tax growth projections are going to be over the life of their lease that they're planning to commit to. And we work with them to set those targets. And if they hit them on an annual basis, then we are in a position as a city to think of it as kind of a rebate, rebate back a percentage of those income taxes back to the company directly, just in the form of a cash payment or a check. That's really, what it is. You'll hear a lot about tax abatements. The city of Dublin in particular doesn't do them because we know that they impact our school districts, since the majority of property taxes go to funding the schools. So we as a city have historically not done that. That's something that other communities in the region do. It's just a policy decision that our elected officials have drawn that line in the sand that we just don't do that. There have been some exceptions over the years, so we can certainly talk about that if there's interest, but by and large, we don't. So really, our incentive toolkit is really those performance-based cash incentives. We'll do grants here and there as well, particularly if a company is planning to invest significantly in the real estate that they're leasing or purchasing. And fiber optics, that's another one of our quintessential incentive offerings at the city of Dublin. Otherwise, we really try to look at other, the non-monetary incentives. What makes Dublin the best community in the Columbus region to do business? What are those things that we as a city can do in terms of providing infrastructure? Again, places like Bridge Park, again, working with our school districts on those types of quality of life offerings. How can we, as an economic development team, work with all of our regional partners and our city to make sure that we are setting the right conditions, that companies have no other choice but to locate their businesses in the city of Dublin, incentives or not? That's really what we're doing at the end of the day, every day. From an innovation standpoint, I'll just mention this one briefly. You might have heard about the 33 Smart Mobility Corridor connecting between Honda, the Transportation Research Center, down to the city of Dublin. That's something that we're putting a lot of attention and investment in, and partnering with Union County, the city of Marysville, and some of the other public entities in that area, like also ODOT, Drive Ohio, and others. And we're also working with the state of Ohio and One Columbus to market this area for new investment. The city of Dublin, I put on here on the screen, the city council has established a visionary goal of making the city of Dublin the most connected city in the United States. This was a very timely goal. It actually came about in, I think, sometime in mid-2019, and it became increasingly important through the pandemic as we all worked from home. And broadband connection is not the strongest in many residential settings. So our city council is looking at, what are fiber to the home options that we can either invest in or partner with private entities to make available in our community. Again, if you think about that from the income tax discussion we had a little bit earlier about, folks paying where they live, if that legislation happens and there's a significant change in how municipalities are funded over the long term, it really becomes in our interest then to make sure that our residential neighborhoods are just as well connected to attract workers who, are often higher paid, have higher incomes, higher earners, and allow them to work from home easier. So this is still in pretty early stages, but that's something that council has asked staff to work on studying very closely in the coming years. So again, between the 33 corridor and kind of the automotive R&D investment, looking at new businesses to attract to the city from that standpoint, as well as fiber to the home and just overall community broadband connectivity. Those are some of the innovation things that we're working on there. From an entrepreneurship standpoint, many of you are familiar with the Dublin Entrepreneurial Center, located in Metro Center. It just celebrated its 10th anniversary a little over a year ago, so I guess it's 11 at this point. But another new to the market entity is Cohatch. They've really made a big splash in the region and beyond. At this point, they're expanding to other states as well. They've got a great facility in Worthington, many of you are probably familiar with. They've got a new facility that they're going in behind the former Brazen Head in historic Dublin, which is now North High Brewing, which is very exciting. And that's going to be just another flavor of that kind of startup space that the city of Dublin has to offer. Another question here. Do you have residential real estate for all types of wage earners? It's a great question. And honestly, from the workforce standpoint that we were talking about, how, again, companies are increasingly looking at where does a community, does a region have the workforce that they're looking for? A lot of times what site selectors are looking at are building permit numbers, how many permits, residential building permits are being pulled on an annual basis, and how does that compare with other, competing regions like, let's say, Indianapolis, Austin, Texas, Nashville, Charlotte. Those are some that are often come into the equation when it comes to who we're competing with for national projects. Absolutely, that's the different types and price points of housing is a huge factor. So I would venture to say at this point, no, we don't have enough at all ranges of price points. We don't have enough we certainly have plenty of housing for high earning households. But as if nothing else, one of the surprising outcomes of the pandemic is how housing prices have just continued to skyrocket across the region. And Dublin is becoming increasingly unaffordable for those just out of college, those who work at Dublin City schools, or the hospitals even. We just don't have a whole lot of housing that is going to reach all of those income levels. So that's something that we're studying. We're working with MORPC, the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission has a regional housing strategy that they're studying what the needs are and how to go about addressing that. Again, there are very real economic development impacts as a result of housing policy. So more to come on that one for sure. Great questions. Thanks for all of these, by the way. Keep it coming. The last one there is infrastructure. And just by way of example here, I mentioned our fiber optic program. The city of Dublin really pioneered the use of fiber optics as an incentive for companies. Up until the past couple of years, they were made available only to our largest employers, just given the value of that asset. As dark fiber leases, giving them their own dedicated strands of fiber. We've since partnered with 2 local data center providers to greatly expand the reach of our fiber optic program to smaller companies as well. So particularly for those smaller companies that are in multi-tenant buildings, that they are able to wire into where our fiber is located and connect back to data centers, and we are able to offer certain data services free of charge. So we've got a video on that for those who may be interested, and I'm happy to talk more about that if there are questions. So again, just to kind of tie that all back together, what we do every day: business retention and expansion, attraction, workforce development, innovation, entrepreneurship, and infrastructure. Really everything that we do falls in one of those 5 buckets. Okay, it's about 8:20 here. If I'm good on time, feel free to jump in and cut me off if I'm running out. Just got a couple more slides in terms of updates, in terms of development activity. Thank you, John, for the comments and the questions. Appreciate that. Keep them coming. But I did, just for those of you again who are interested in metrics and how we measure our success. Really, we're looking at, again, high quality jobs and a diversified tax base. I think the Columbus region has always fared well as among other regions in the state because of how diversified we are. As the seat of government, we have Ohio State University, and we just have a lot of companies ranging from insurance to retail and fashion, healthcare, and otherwise. Anytime any one of those industries has been impacted, we've been able to weather the storm because of how diversified our tax base is, and that's true for Dublin as well. And we also look at how strong and sustainable our community is. Housing and quality of life certainly factors into that. And here are just some of those factors that we think about. And really how we go about doing that is through our business retention and expansion program, meeting with companies. That's what we do day in and day out, tracking lease activity, new company investment announcements, and so forth. Looking at our vacancy rates on a quarterly basis, talking with our broker community, and then studying just unemployment rates and quality of life statistics. So that's kind of how we evaluate how we're doing and look where we need to be spending more time and effort rethinking existing programs to meet the needs of our businesses. And then just a couple of development updates. Here's that map of Dublin again. So just to orient you here, here's Sawmill Road, which is the east boundary with the city of Columbus. And then you've got 270 here, and then 33, 161, and then Post Road. So for those of you who are familiar with the Costco in this area, that's actually within Union County, the township. That's not the city of Dublin, just across the street. And that's really where our border ends on the west end of town. And then Muirfield is kind of up in this white area, and then Ballantrae to the south. So the majority of Dublin's commercial activity happens kind of along the 270, 33, 161 axis, if you will. And as far as just development activity happening in the area, there's going to be the 161, 33 Post Road interchange. That's a major project that is a bit overdue. Now that the 33 to 70 interchanges is wrapped up for the most part, at least early phases. Now we're turning our attentions back to 33 161 Post Road. You'll see that happening in the next couple of years. We're finishing design work and land acquisition on that one. I've got a slide on the OSU Wexner Medical Center, so I'll talk about that one in just a minute. If you've been in Dublin recently, you've probably seen that Dublin City Hall has relocated to the south side of Kaufman Park over here, and they're building a major addition for a brand new council chambers. It's additional office space from there, so keep an eye on that. Riverside Park in the Bridge Street area, that will be completed next year. We're very excited for that to come to fruition. That's a long work in progress, and we just love having the bridge open, at least I personally do. It's very exciting to see that getting a lot of attention and awards for sure. And then up on the northeastern side of the screen here, Dublin Rehab Hospital recently completed. That's behind the Duck Donuts. If you're familiar with where that is, behind the Kroger Center. And then just down the street, closer to Tuttle and Franz, is the Corners, which is a retail and restaurant project that we're doing as a public-private partnership with the Daimler Group. I'll talk about that in just a minute as well. So I mentioned the OSU Wexner Medical Center Outpatient Care Center, ambulatory care. They're going to be building, with steel's already going up if you've driven by lately, a almost 300,000 square foot facility located on the south side of 33. The city of Dublin, as part of that, is constructing a new roadway, University Boulevard. So you might have heard of University Boulevard before. The other piece of it is located up by Ohio University's campus. We're kind of, they've got a little chunk of the roadway there. We're building another chunk of it, and then eventually the two pieces will be connected over the long term as Ohio University continues to build out their campus. This will be a major, new part of the roadway network. And you can think of it in terms of character, much like Emerald Parkway kind of mirrors 270. That's kind of the character and really intent for that roadway. And it will be the new front door for this new medical center. So we're very excited about that. Phase 1 construction will be ending this year, and the facility itself will open September of 2022, so a couple years out still. And then as part of that, we'll also be doing some intersection improvements to Avery Road and Shire Rings in that area. And then let's see here. I mentioned the Corners project. This, just to orient you, this is at France Road and Rings Road, and the field of corn is located just on the south side of Rings in that area. So if you know where the field of corn is, it's just across the street from that. The city of Dublin acquired some land in this area a couple of years ago, and we actually spent or used part of that land to build a new parking lot adjacent to the building that Cardinal Health was going to be occupying. So that's kind of a non-traditional incentive that we used. We had land, and we knew that Cardinal needed more parking than existed on that site that they were willing to lease, this 400,000 square foot building. So we said that we would build them that parking lot if they committed to a long-term lease, and that's what they did. So on that residual piece of property, we're working with the Daimler Group to provide a coffee shop, some restaurants, and some other supporting retail to really bring amenities to this area. This is one of the largest parts of Dublin that really doesn't have anything within walking distance or a 5-minute drive. For those who work in this area, they really have to get in the car and drive up to Bridge Street or down to Tuttle. So just from a convenience, quality of life, ability to attract employees who want to have somewhere to walk on their lunch break, that was really the idea behind this. So we're getting ready to break ground on it on this first phase of the project yet this spring here. And we're very excited to be able to support the companies who, as they're coming back to the office, hopefully in the nearer term, to bring some, have some amenities waiting for them when they get back. And then I'll just close out the presentation here with just an update on Bridge Park. So again, those of you, here's just an aerial overview. Those of you who have been over there recently, you can see the existing buildings that are up. The new North Market is located in this building here. Haggerty, as I mentioned, is going in this new office building. So this is the current phase that's under construction. There are some townhomes that are finished, and some other future residential planned kind of just behind that, tucked behind the North Market area. And Crawford Hoying, the developer, is already looking at marketing this block kind of behind where the there's the ramen shop, and local canteen is just over here. So kind of behind that, between that and the Wendy's campus, which is over here, looking at another block of office development and residential to, again, continue to support the Bridge Park neighborhood as it's emerging. And they're also starting to turn their sights to the southeast corner of the roundabout as well. So where the Wendy's used to be down the hill, once it moved to the top of the hill, for those of you who remember, looking at future opportunities for development kind of on that southeast part of that intersection. And this is just kind of an overview of kind of a plan as far as where leasing opportunities are still available for office tenants. So we do have a couple of larger floor plates available to attract large tenants like Haggerty into the region. So whenever we have companies come to town and visit, or we're talking with site selectors, this is absolutely an area that they look at first in many cases. Which is exciting, but it also means that we have our work cut out for us to make sure that the rest of Dublin maintains its value and investment as well, and is just as every bit as attractive as of a place to do business. And that's going to be increasingly important in the future, just as the nature of work is poised to fundamentally change, just with virtualization, looking at, the types of places people want to work, possible social distancing measures, or more hoteling where employees don't have assigned seating. They just have a space that they come in, they do staff meetings, they kind of plug in their laptops and work from home the rest of the time. What is the impact going to be on our office real estate for the long term? It's a question that we are very busy and hard at work trying to answer as we incrementally are talking with our partners. So but there's no question that Bridge Park is going to be a successful and thriving area for years to come. These are the types of places, again, that are really attracting the workforce that companies really need. So that's really the economic development rationale behind us doing that project. So I've been doing a lot of talking, and I've covered a lot of ground here. That's really my last set of slides. I'm happy to answer any questions that haven't already been asked, or if there's any other topics that I didn't cover that you're hoping I did, happy to go into more details. So thank you for your time and attention, and again for the invitation to speak with all of you this morning.
Sorry, Jim, you were muted. What was that?
Well, thank you very much, Rachel, for your presentation. We're nearing the end, so we can take one or two questions, and then if Rachel, you can stick around for a little while, we can do that in a less formal meeting once the formal meeting is ended. So are there any questions for Rachel? I don't see any at the moment. So if you can stick around, I would appreciate it.
Sure.
And we can go from there. Okay, in closing, we will, the next week's meeting will be presented by our Interact students along with Anne and Ro in talking about our youth programming as a club. So I invite everyone to come to the next meeting. It is in many ways an exciting type of meeting in terms of how are we as a club reaching out to the youth in both Dublin and Worthington. So with that, I would like to go to the our four-way test, and if Steve can unmute everyone, appreciate that. Steve, can you unmute everyone?
No, I can't. Everybody's got to unmute themselves.
Oh, okay. So if you can unmute for the four-way test. And someone is on both there.
Maybe not everyone.
Yeah.
Your guy did.
Okay. Okay.
I'm looking for it.
Okay.
Whoever's on the iPhone, I muted you. Please stay on mute.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. As part of the four-way test, of the things we think, say, and do, first, is it
the truth?
Second,
Is it
Is it
fair to all concerned?
third, will it
Build goodwill and better friendships.
and fourth,
Will it
Be beneficial to all concerned.
again, thank you, and see you again next week at 7:30. Have a good week, and it's exciting that we're able to begin to see each other more in person.